Chapter 4. Value Shifts. When I began working with Shawn, he would often tell me that something has to happen in every scene. He said most beginning writers have scene after scene, sequence after sequence, where nothing happens. I didn't fully understand this until I looked closely at some of my old writing. Sure enough, I had scene after scene where nothing happened. I think this is because of fear. When we're starting out writing, we don't really know what we're doing, so we write a lot of description and dialogue and character activity, but we avoid deciding what happens next. It's like my dog that is afraid to come down the stairs. He paces and whines and takes one step, then backs up and paces and whines and takes another step. And finally, after 5 minutes of movement but no progress, he does the thing he could have done from the beginning. He comes down the stairs. The thing that helped me overcome this affliction was to think about value shifts. When we say nothing happens in a scene, what we're really saying is there is no value shift. The character hasn't moved closer to or further from what they want or need. Something has happened in our scene only if we can point to a change on a spectrum of value that relates to our genre. In an action story scene, for instance, the value for our character must shift from life towards death or vice versa. If our character is safe at the beginning of the scene and still safe at the end of the scene, even if we wrote a couple of thousand words of conversation and action, nothing happened. We wrote about my dog pacing at the top of the stairs, but never got to the part where he actually comes down the stairs. Obviously, this doesn't mean a bomb has to go off in every scene, but it means the protagonist's situation has to move toward one side of the spectrum or the other. Safe to unsafe, positive to negative. Love to hate, positive to negative. Ridicule to popular, negative to positive. Hope to despair, positive to negative. Confusion to clarity, negative to positive. Peace to war, positive to negative. It also doesn't have to be an enormous shift. Let's take that last one, for example, peace to war. This can be a moment in our story when the dictator of the country declares war on the Allied forces. Or it can be that moment when your character's mother-in-law says she is making the Thanksgiving turkey this year. We could describe either as a shift from peace to war, positive to negative. Think about how this adds another important tool to our toolbox. As we write our stories, we can be aware of value shifts. We can write a scene where nothing happens. That's something we can fix right away. Also, when it comes time to work with our editor, she says something like, "I don't feel like the scene is going anywhere." We immediately realize it's time to identify a value shift in our scene. If we can't find the value shift, it's time for a rewrite. Honestly, if our editor can't find the value shift, that probably means it's time for a rewrite. Our character has to be at one place on a value spectrum at the beginning and shift to either a more negative or more positive place by the end of the scene. If they don't, something is wrong. Nothing happened. It doesn't work. Okay, so this is helpful. Every part of our story has to have a value shift. Next obvious question, how do we shift a value? I can buy a new chest of drawers from IKEA and know at the end of the process, I will have an assembled chest of drawers, but it's helpful to have a step-by-step process for how that is going to happen. This is where the 5 commandments of storytelling come into play. But before we get to that, we have to talk about the parts of our story.